My name is Aimee LaBree. I'm the VP of Training and Development here at Leadous. And if we have not met, nice to meet you. Leadous is a consultancy that helps organizations grow their pipeline by helping you optimize marketing automation. We help with everything having to do with marketing, technical consulting, as well as managed services for demand gen strategy, automation platform audits, integrations, reporting and analytics, account-based marketing, and everything from stack augmentation to campaign support as needed. I've been with Leadous for quite a while now and work very deeply in the Marketo platform. If you haven't joined us before for a deep dish, we have hosted these. They used to be in person, and now as we are living in a different time, we're hosting them virtually. But it's an opportunity to learn with other Marketo users or marketing automation platform users about ways to optimize your platform, tips and tricks for different features, and just meeting other people in the space. Today's webinar will be on multi-touch attribution functionalities in Marketo. And let's just talk about the agenda here, a couple housekeeping items as well. I'll give an overview of what we'll be discussing in terms of multi-touch attribution, and we'll look at some models and examples of attribution in general, and then more specific towards Marketo's capabilities, and then some next steps you can use for your own organization. Throughout the presentation, feel free to add questions in the chat. I will answer a couple questions towards the end of the presentation. And of course, I'm always here along with Leadous to answer any further questions you have about the presentation or about multi-touch attribution in your platform. Happy to help. So let's get started. I think a good overview is to understand what multi-touch attribution is and why and what and how. Why are we wanting to do this? What is it? And how do we actually start to accomplish this in a tool like Marketo? The challenge is for marketing typically, how do we highlight where exactly deals came from, right? We want to understand which programs and initiatives, and as a little tidbit here, Marketo refers to individual marketing initiatives as programs, and so you'll hear me use that term. But which programs are actually driving deals? Which programs are contributing to pipeline or ROI? And it can be hard for marketing to actually prove influence in these areas. Oftentimes you'll have one-dimensional reporting that doesn't show the whole picture. So you're not able to really show from a known person to a closed one, which touch points impacted people, right? Reporting also can take a lot of time. So a lot of times we're exporting spreadsheets, we're working with multiple tools. The goal, of course, is to collect and really accurately weigh the results across channels and give credit where credit is due. We want to be able to dedicate resources for more targeted campaigns. So not only putting our resources and money where it matters, but also that increases and impacts our engagement with our audience, right? So more targeted, personalized campaigns with your audience that influence and drive more contribution to pipeline. We also want to synthesize those person-level insights to optimize our initiatives and drive those efficiencies. If we could run one report to show it all, that would be great, right? I'm going to show you some ways to run some great reports and then how you could actually get some of that roll-up detail that you'd like. So what is attribution? Attribution generally is analyzing the marketing touch points of a buyer on their path to becoming a customer. This is giving credit to the marketing initiatives that got them there. So which ones were most successful at converting, which ones drove opportunities, and specifically in Marketo, which channels and programs contributed to ROI. A channel might be something like webinars. And did webinars outperform newsletters, right? Or did our email sends outperform social? You can generally get an idea of how they're performing, but how does that line up with your goals as an organization, right? Attribution can help you paint that picture. There are a couple things to understand about attribution models that are pretty widely used across different tools, but are, I think, not understood very well and sometimes. You have a first touch model, and a first touch model is going to apply all the credit to a single touch point in the customer journey. So that's going to be the first program or campaign that a person is associated with in Marketo. Typically, these are first click models where 100% of the credit is going to go to the action that drives that first visit to the website. Lead creation click models, which will provide credit for the last action a visitor takes before filling out a form. Or last click models, which is giving credit to the channel that turned a lead into an opportunity. An example of how a first touch model works with Marketo. And this is a really great resource that I'm linking you to here in the materials, but Marketo created some exercises to help us understand what first touch looks like in Marketo and what multi-touch looks like in Marketo. If we look at first touch in Marketo, and we look at the acquisition attribution or the first touch attribution towards pipeline, first touch will give credit to the program that acquires the contact. So if we ask the question, if two or more programs touch the same contact, right? So if I'm a member of program B, which is an email blast, and I click on that email, and then an opportunity is created that I'm in, and then I become a member of program C and I subscribe to that blog, which program is actually going to receive the acquisition attribution? We're actually going to go back to the first touch and say that the pipeline created from this person is that first touch new name program. So if a person visited a booth and that's how they came into Marketo, that's how we know them or began to know them, that's where that pipeline is going to be attributed, because that's the first relationship we had, right? It doesn't matter if the record reaches success in program A, that's just where we got to know them. It's an example of that first touch model. If we look at a first touch model in Marketo for acquisition attribution for revenue 1 credit, this will give credit to the program that acquired the contact as well. So when 2 or more programs touch the same contact and there's an opportunity closed and it's 1, the program that acquired the contact still gets 100% of that credit to revenue 1 because that's where we got to know the person. So it doesn't really matter what actions I take in program B or C because program A was still where I met you, right? So let's give that opportunity closed 1 credit and that revenue credit to program A. That's an overview of how that first touch idea works. Now, you can see that this can create some conversation internally in an organization about, well, that doesn't really give credit to all of the touch points along the pipeline. It doesn't give credit to maybe this most recent program where the person converted. And I really think that content drove that conversion, right? This was the final thing that got them to raise their hand. So with multi-touch models, we're giving credit to different types of activities. And there are a few different model types that are used in different tools. or just in reporting in general. You can work with linear models, which gives equal weight to every touch point. So it's going to divide the credit for pipeline created or revenue won all along the line. There are descending or time decay models where more credit is given to touch points that are closer to the conversion. U-shaped models where a portion of the revenue credit is given to the first lead creation touch and then the rest is split between every other. W-shaped models, which is another configuration of credit to that first lead creation, opportunity creation, and then remaining percentage divided among the other activities. And then you get a really robust full path model, which is throughout the entire customer journey, 25% or 22.5% of the revenue credit is going to go to first creation, opportunity creation, closed revenue, and then the remaining percentage among the other touch points. So you could see that multi-touch is going to be best for, this is typically great for a B2B organization, for non-linear customer journeys and complex long life cycles where you have a lot of initiatives and touch points that you need to divide credit among, or you need to weight credit attribution. And also for custom needs, right? So how does Marketo think about multi-touch? It's one of the biggest questions we get. So what is Marketo? How does it think about it in terms of its analytics right now? And what can I start doing to optimize this feature? Marketo defines this multi-touch as which programs are the most influential in moving people forward in the sales cycle over time, right? It looks at program success. It is allowing you to divide credit among the programs that drive engagement. This is a more linear model, and I'll show you how this breaks out, but it will provide credit to each of the touch points. For example, for multi-touch in Marketo, success attribution or multi-touch attribution to pipeline credit. So giving credit to programs in which a contact reaches success. And we'll talk about what this means a little bit more in a bit here. But a success in a program might be, I have clicked, or I have filled out a form, or I have attended a webinar. All of the programs that indicate that that lead has interacted are going to get a portion of credit. So when two or more programs touch the same contact and an opportunity is created, Marketo is going to divide that. So let's say we have an opportunity created in your CRM, say a Salesforce or Dynamics. If $300,000 is created, Marketo will break that in half and say they hit success in program A, they downloaded a piece of content, or they hit success in program B, they clicked an email. We're going to split that. All the programs in which they achieved success prior to the opportunity creation get that equal portion. So instead of just looking at that first touch, we're acknowledging that all of these different touch points contributed in some way. For revenue one, you'll see something like this. When two or more programs touch the same contact and an opportunity is closed with an amount of $300,000, all programs in which the contact achieved success prior to the opportunity close get an equal portion. So program A was successful, program B was successful, the opportunity was created, then I'm associated with that opportunity and we have an opportunity closed status. And while that's happening, I subscribe to a blog and that's success. We're now going to divide that opportunity closed one amount to these separate touch points. So now we've got 3 buckets, right? This is how Marketo starts to think about dividing credit here. Now that we understand these definitions are, what attribution looks like, and Marketo's way of thinking about this, we really need to deeply understand the pieces of the puzzle that need to be configured or put together in Marketo to make this work. This also factors in your CRM. So whether you're using Dynamics or Salesforce or another tool that integrates with Marketo, that information is passing information about opportunities, is passing back to Marketo, where we have these pipeline created amounts, and pretty critical to showing how marketing is influencing that pipeline. So we want to make sure that we think about that as well. And also leverage other tools that you may have. So we can set things up in Marketo based in our programs. So in our individual marketing initiatives, we want to make sure that our programs are set up to track acquisition and have period costs associated, which we will discuss a little bit more. That we have our channels and tags configured correctly. Channels are those delivery mechanisms or kind of umbrella categories of all of your initiatives. So that might be webinars, social, web content. We want to make sure those are configured and have program statuses and success markers so that we can line our programs up really nicely to show which programs and channels perform the best and should be given credit for as touch points. We want to make sure tags are set up in our programs and associated to our channels for more granular reporting. We can also take it a step further and look at specific conversion details using field data. Something I want to let you know about, because I think that you can use this in your reports to get a look at an individual path that people will take and some of the individual account details, and it can provide a nice further level of data for you to take to your team. We want to make sure that CRM is set up to accurately display the contacts that you have in Marketo that are associated with opportunities, pipeline, revenue. And then we'll talk about some of these other tools that we want to make sure are turned on to get you the reporting that you need. So let's take a look at some of the key components of each of these puzzle pieces. One of the biggest things with attribution is making sure that everything in Marketo is set up foundationally well so that you can start pulling these great reports. A lot of times people don't know where to start. And so they look at these reports and they're like, well, I don't know if I can trust this data because I don't think I have things set up correctly. So we want to make sure we go back to square one. It's not as daunting as it seems, but it does take some planning, which I will give you some tips for. But it starts with our program setup. Every program in Marketo is a touch point, but we also want to identify the acquisition. Acquisition is that first touch program membership. So if I get an invite for today's webinar and I fill out a form, or maybe I got an email forwarded and I fill out this registration form, I come into Marketo, this webinar program is going to be my acquisition program. It's that first touch. So in a first touch model, this program would get all the credit for any pipeline or revenue created. What acquisition does is marks that first touch, but I do need to make sure you understand it's not automatically marked. So in Marketo, we want to make sure that if it's not automatically, if you're not being ingested via a Marketo form on a Marketo landing page, you do need to set up some smart campaign flows to start setting that acquisition. You can actually see in your database those people that do not have an acquisition program. I'll give you some tips on how to start adjusting that later. With your program setup, you also want to make sure that you are in your setup tab of each program, accurately defining the channel and adding any tags or further identifiers about the type of program you're running. You're also able to add period costs so that we can see some cost per membership breakdown. So in a program report, you're going to be able to start to see membership, how many people were brand new with that first touch, how many people hit success, and any cost per member or cost per success breakdowns. Let's learn a little bit more about what success is, right? Within any program, if I'm ingested into a webinar program as registered, you're going to want to track my membership status. You're going to want to track me from registered all the way to attended or to no-show, or whether I attended that program on demand. You do this by configuring your channels and tags in the admin section. This allows you to define how people can move through all of your programs within that type of channel, and also what success steps are. This channel and tag and program configuration is how Marketo starts to roll out attribution. So it will say, oh, this person has been a member of A, B, C, D programs, and they've hit success in A program and C program. So it will start to divide touch point or credit to A and C. This is a really important foundational setup component in Marketo that you can start working on right away. So for example, with a webinar program, I could have a status of invited, which means I may send someone an email to invite them. I listen for if they filled out a form, I would move them to registered. Then I listen for whether the person has attended, and I'm going to mark that as a success. Or maybe attending on demand is also a success. Something to note in Marketo is that you can have multiple success metrics for any given program. That's because maybe in an email send program, success might look like a click one day, but next month, maybe I'm driving them to a form fill, and that's success. If you're using two successes, you'll want to make sure that you're marking program success in your smart campaign flows within the program. It's a little tip there to help you with better reporting. I can also tag my programs for better reporting too. So not only can I say, this is how people hit success in the program, but I could define what type of content is being rolled out in the program, what quarter the program was created, which product or service is being offered, who authored the program. And that helps not only with your multi-touch program attribution, but which units or based on which tag I've created, which quarter drives, these touch point progressions, so I can drill into my reporting. An important note is that in your CRM, we want to make sure that, for example, this is a Salesforce specific example. In other CRMs, it's going to be quite similar, but that you have a opportunity contact role tied to everybody that is added to opportunities. This allows Marketo to link the person to the opportunity so that we can follow them all the way through and track all those touch points and give credit for that deal, right? It also allows you to run some campaign influencer or broader reports in your CRM. We'll want to make sure that if you have the capability in Marketo to add a revenue cycle model, that you do this. We call the revenue cycle model an RCM. You'll hear it referred to as this. The RCM not only shows the success path, so like the ideal path someone can take on their way to a one opportunity, but it can line up your stages and touch points with these life cycle statuses. So I could look at, okay, when a person is known, this is their acquisition program, this is their first touch. Let's look at some of the source detail. They can become engaged, which is potentially their second or third or fourth touch. Their most recent or last touch is when they became marketing qualified. And I can use this in reporting to granularly look at pipeline created and pipeline influence by stage in the revenue cycle model. Another granular level detail that you can implement is to actually start tracking field data on individual records, touch points. So we can create custom fields for first, multi, and last touch points. And on all of our forms, add a hidden field that listens for URL parameter or UTM parameters and stores them. So I'm able to say the person came in and from web content A, from this source, via this medium, via this term, ingest that into my form and store it on their individual person record. So I'm going to actually use these custom fields to add a layer of complexity to my reporting and look at some of this individual person record pipeline or path or touch points. So foundationally, if we have more of these pieces set up and we're starting to clean this up, we're able to now jump in and review some of these initial results. There are some key reports in Marketo that are available and some more advanced reporting that some organizations have purchased that are going to be really helpful for this right away for some of you, and then in a pretty short order if you start enabling some of these foundational components. We've got performance insights, which we will review, program analyzer, opportunity influence analyzer, a revenue explorer is an advanced report, Bizible, which we will discuss, and you're able to use some more robust CRM reporting, and as we just discussed, some individual person record kind of field reporting. You'll want to make sure once you've started to set up your channels and tags, you have programs kind of firmed up the way you want, you feel good about your acquisition program getting set, you'll go into your admin section and make sure that you change the way Marketo ties contacts to opportunities for this acquisition and success attribution. It's a little kind of switch you can pull wherein you can say that only contacts with roles who reach success and become part of an opportunity or role get the credit. That's called explicit. Implicit gives credit to contacts in the program who reach success in any opportunity associated, but they don't need to be associated to the opportunity or have no role. This gets a little tougher because it's kind of, we don't know for sure if the person has anything to do with this deal, right? So we always kind of say, make sure that contacts are associated with roles and an opportunity. Hybrid is first going to give credit to an explicit contact role, but then if there are none, then it goes by implicit. If you start to play with this setting, you'll see your report starts to change slightly because it's starting to tie people in your opportunity in your CRM with people in Marketo and their activities. The quickest win, I would say, for most people, if you have not jumped into performance insights, this is a great report to start getting an idea of how to view this multi-touch. It's kind of tucked away. And so if you open this report and you adjust your settings to look for engagement over time, potentially it's this current month or this year, you're able to view engagement metrics, pipeline, and revenue by opportunities created using that multi-touch breakdown. So Marketo will show you, let's look at all of your channels and programs, look at the opportunities created, and based on the contact roles and all of the program tagging, membership successes, divide credit among all of these programs now, because we're using this multi-touch parameter. So you can see now in this month, based on multi-touch, newsletters are still kind of contributing to the most opportunity, right? Most opportunity creation. It will take you down the line and show you and actually let you click on and drill into the individual metrics for each of these channels, as well as, if you scroll into the report, the programs themselves. It'll show you the new opportunities, pipeline open, expected revenue. And you can also just view engagement. So if you are in the engagement tab, it will show you which drove the most engagement, whether if it wasn't just opportunities, but across the whole pipeline or across the whole life cycle, what programs really typically drive the most engagement. What's great about this is that you're able to further drill this down by program tag. So I could look at this report, but because I've now set up my tags, I can break it down by product or region or industry or division and start to get a more granular look at a subset or a segment of my database and see, okay, well, for everybody, maybe newsletters are leading, but for a specific industry, maybe it's, social. This view just kind of gives you a reminder of how we break this down if we view pipeline. But in the settings, this kind of, you go into this report, there's so many bells and whistles. It's so powerful that we can forget just clicking one setting that shows multi-touch for influenced opportunities. We get to see that marketing influenced opportunities, and we'll see the breakdown. So I strongly suggest that you go into your performance insights and start to look at what's already there. The other thing that we can start working with right away is our program analyzer. The program analyzer is a more advanced report. Not everybody has this functionality, but I do want to call out some of the more advanced reports that people may have access to. This is going to give you a nice X and Y axis view of your program and channel metrics to show you that multi-touch pipeline influence, right? So you'll see on the right, I can look at first touch pipeline created, but I can change that to multi-touch and start to look at individual channels. It will give me bubbles of varying sizes and level up, okay, which ones, if I look at a multi-touch perspectives, are dividing credit right now. How many members do they have? How many people have hit success? What was the program cost? And I can actually compare that to the revenue created right in the graph. I can also see cost per the RCM stage, so the revenue cycle model stage. So I could look at a specific model and say, show me the pipeline created for people within this stage of my life cycle model. I can hover over it and get more details. Opportunity Influence Analyzer is a report that can actually help you drill into how individuals are converting along their life cycle. So multiple touch points, but also by account. So I can look for people who are in a specific account, who have an opportunity role or no role. And all of these little green touch points are their little successes along the way. So this might be, this is when I subscribed to a blog. This is when I clicked an email. This is when I filled a content form. And the green area is going to show you when the opportunity was created. And so you'll be able to see what happened before the opportunity, during the opportunity, and then after. And you might be surprised about what really converted people. So the first touch is going to be at the beginning, and then that multi-touch will show you, okay, what really flipped the switch? Or is it the people that I expected? This is great for kind of that account-based or targeted account view if you've got any kind of tiered accounts you're looking at. If I'm using UTM reporting, so I'm now gathering touch points in my field. So Aimee comes in, she registers for a webinar. Maybe my source was on Facebook. I have identified the content that was served on Facebook for the webinar. I can actually start gathering these, and then you will see that within an individual person record, I can pull in these columns and see, okay, she first came in, maybe Facebook, and then her next conversion was after an email, and then her third conversion was maybe in a social campaign. So you can start to see what individual people are doing. And if you're stamping values, you can actually go into the people performance report to see some trends. So I could look at, show me everybody in the past month and group it by last touch source. And you'll see that, well, one person came in from Facebook, one person, or like, we've got 300,000 people here who don't have a last touch. So not only do I know where the holes are, but I now know, based on my field data and my form fill conversions, what people are doing individually. So there's an additional layer that you can add to some of your reporting to really drill in and see some specifics and get some additional data. If we have your CRM configured now, for example, in Salesforce, if we're running campaigns and we have people associated to opportunities, we're now able to see, working with Marketo, the opportunities created by individual campaigns, the stage that those opportunities are within, and additional ROI analysis reports. So you're able to work in conjunction with your CRM here. Some additional reporting in Marketo that some companies have, or you may be interested in exploring, would be Revenue Cycle Explorer. This is a really multidimensional custom report for how your programs and channels are helping generate that pipeline, right? And you can actually break it down with additional filters. So I could take in some of that field data, the source information, bring it into these really custom reports in my Explorer reporting. So you could see the programs, the cost, the multi-touch pipeline generated, and this works in conjunction with your CRM. So this gives you a really powerful roll-up. So this is kind of like next level reporting capability. Now, if I really want to knock it out of the park, Marketo has something called Bizible. This is really best in class for multidimensional reporting across channels. So we talked about in Marketo out of the box, it really is going to divide credit in a bit more of a linear fashion where it's equally giving credit to the multiple touch points. With a tool like Bizible, it's using code on your website to track touch points or units of attribution with these specific interactions. And that's on a very granular person level. And it can provide some really flexible models. So we're talking some of the fancier models where you're giving different weighted percentages based on the customer journey. So you're able to create your models and actually tie in account-based marketing approaches. So leads and contacts will roll up to accounts and opportunities automatically. You get those full funnel insights. So some of the ad network integrations, detailed marketing spend, and really optimizing the customer journey. So how do I even get started? I think, and a couple of questions have come in already, which is like, okay, this is a lot of awesome reporting capabilities, and I see kind of where we might want to start, but like where to start? Typically when we work with clients and when I help them think about multi-touch attribution, I like to help them think about, let's back up to the beginning. Let's look at all of your potential channels, all of the potential statuses and success markers that we are currently using or should be using. And a lot of times you don't know what you don't know, so we're not appropriately marking these in Marketo. Or if we are, we haven't enabled them to be reported on, or understood that our CRM maybe needs to have a couple things tweaked, like contact roles or associations to opportunities that will help this. I also ask people to think about more sourcing details. Can we start using URLs and UTMs, working with our smart campaigns and forms to identify where people are coming from that are going into these our programs, right? So if I'm doing webinars, maybe we want to identify more about this person came into this webinar, it was a virtual event or it was a virtual training. In my online advertising channel, what are all of the possible sources that are funneling people in? LinkedIn, Facebook, PPC. And then I have them map up their current initiatives with these channels and sources to get an idea of, okay, I've got these first two things kind of conceptualized here, but I don't even know how to get my programs pointing the right way. We want to make sure that your programs, first of all, are labeled nice and cleanly so we can see them in reporting and we get those nice roll-ups, that we're making sure to capture acquisition and program membership so that we can start using that first touch and multi-touch reporting, that we're marking source details. So if we're not reading it automatically in a form, in my smart campaign, am I saying, yep, this is the acquisition. Yep, this is where they came from. That I'm associating costs with as programs as much as possible. Some costs are easier to define, right? So for a webinar, I might be paying a speaker, so I know that it costs that much. For emails, a little bit tenuous, not necessarily easy to understand how much it costs for individual email blasts maybe. But we can start pulling in either costs or making programs inclusive so that we don't need a cost, but it's still going to show up and be there for that multi-touch reporting. Really importantly, we want to make sure we have the appropriate program statuses and that we're marking program status updates and the success marker. So when did this person hit success in my program so that I can show these programs and channels are driving the most success all the way through the life cycle. Here's a great checklist. And this goes back to, in the Marketing Nation, not only some of those great exercises that we looked at, which you will see more in depth, but just a great checklist to start getting your reporting going. We got to establish the good program naming convention as noted, work with those channels and tags, create those program statuses, successes, make sure our analytics behavior for each channel is opened up to that inclusive, or that there are those costs associated. We looked at the acquisition programs. Make sure you're using smart campaigns in each program to set acquisition or sources if needed. Again, please note that the only time, there's a few times that acquisition is automatically set. That's either through a Marketo form on a Marketo landing page within a program automatically. If you import people directly into the program as members, or if you use a program flow to mark their status as a member, or if they're ingested via like a external campaign or an event. There's a few caveats there. So you'll want to make sure, whether it's in this deck or in your other materials that you study, to remind yourself about how acquisition is set. Work with your period costs so that we can sort not only how much channels cost, so at the end of the day, I can see all of these different touch points, but maybe I spent a ton of money on that newsletter and it really didn't contribute anything towards that multi-touch flow. Maybe it really, the ones that really, carry the most weight, maybe it's social. And I can see revenue created to program membership and success based on, compared to the cost in Marketo. So you're able to use cost in Marketo, cost in your CRM to compare where you're delegating resources. We also want to make sure in your CRM that you're, as noted, adding any amounts there, and that we're associating contacts to the contact role, okay? Again, that's just going to give you the best insight into opportunities and pipeline created and multi-touch. So let's take a couple questions here. I think, and I did address some of these, and if I don't answer your questions as I do a couple here, feel free to send me some after. Of course, we're happy to help with this, getting this rolled out for you and exploring, I think, the tools that exist within your instance already versus some that you have yet to unlock versus some future more robust tools. If you're interested in that, happy to discuss more. But quickly, how can I quickly see some results, right? So you can retroactively go into your programs right now and adjust your costs, your period costs, any tags that help with further reporting. Unfortunately, we can't, in order to change statuses and success, you can't do that in a program that already has members, right? You can add things to it like cost and making it inclusive in reports or syncing it up to a CRM campaign to start seeing some automatic results in your reporting. So you'll make some quick tweaks and all of a sudden that program is going to show up in like a performance insights or analyzer. You can also, in your database, go check to see people that have an empty acquisition. That might surprise you. That's that first touch, right? So if we got to start people on the path somewhere, go check to see how that program acquisition is tracking right now. You're able to then go into performance insights and at least see some first touch data. You can start with that, right? If there's empty acquisition, you can try to go back and actually use some system managed fields in Marketo, like original source type, registration source type, which is like system historical data. So Marketo will stamp, okay, well, this person came from, this referring page or this website, and that might give you some indication of what their acquisition program was if you need to start updating or cleaning some of that data. And again, go double check to make sure that you have cost associated programs, or if you don't have a cost, make sure that that channel or program is marked as inclusive for reporting so that you can broaden your reporting just to see some of that data right away. That will at least pull those programs into some of your reporting so you can compare what you have in Marketo versus what you are pulling elsewhere, or with the spreadsheets you might be exporting. It kind of broadens your capabilities right away. Let's see, another question. How can I see a roll up of kind of the whole, everything that's going on, multi-touch, what everybody is doing? So as you probably noted in the presentation, there are lots of different reporting capabilities depending on the subscription you have with Marketo and the other tools that you have. So likely you'll be starting to work with kind of a combination of reports. I would say Performance Insights is probably your quickest jump into looking at the data that you currently have to see that multi-touch breakdown. Once you start cleaning that data, starting to look at gathering some of that field data, you can start to see kind of patterns there. And also thinking about, if you want to see some more of that roll-up data, stamping more field data, for example, like most recently engaged program. Every time someone comes into a program, you could add that as their most recent touch point. And then in something like a people performance report, you could look for people who came in on the specific channel, their most recent touch point, and all of the opportunities they've contributed to. The people performance report is a really robust way to look at granular data once you kind of have all these pieces in place. It's really powerful for that. I would also take a look for a roll-up at that opportunity influence analyzer to just get an idea of what people are doing, right, within specific accounts. And so if you know certain accounts have open opportunities or recently have won revenue, go check to see who contributed to that if you've got that opportunity influence analyzer, because that gives a good roll-up. Lastly, Bizible is going to give you the whole shebang. So if you have Bizible or you're considering Bizible, Bizible's phenomenal at giving you dashboards and dashboards of kind of the overall pattern and multi-touch, depending on which models you're using, because it's using tracking and kind of looking at touch points in a different way. So that is going to be a really, really excellent roll-up reporting functionality if you are using it or interested in using that. Okay. Last question is kind of how to, does Marketo allow you to choose different models? Different multi-touch models we talked about. Marketo is going to be using more of that linear multi-touch where it's dividing credit among the different touch points. So the percentages will be pretty static in terms of giving credit evenly across all the touch points, unless you're using, of course, just that first touch where it's giving credit to that first acquisition. The ability to choose different models is going to be a Bizible functionality where you're able to look for that U-shaped or W-shaped. And last questions had more to do with how do we plan and move towards multi-touch, right? Like how do we move forward? And we did cover some of the steps. I would definitely take a look at the steps toward attribution checklist. And I think it's really important to look at your current reporting and get a baseline for what you're currently working with, what your goals are, discuss with your team, okay, you know, what have been our goals and what are we seeing or think we're seeing in terms of ROI? I'm now going to go, you know, into Marketo and start mapping, working with some of these foundational setup components and see in your reporting if what is Marketo showing you? Is it showing you close to what you already have, or is it showing you some different details? You'll start to see, okay, here's what our existing tools are showing us based on the reporting we were using. Start to look at what some of the wins are in Marketo. Are you seeing data that is surprising to you? And this will help you start to kind of remap, redefine your goals, and then start to dedicate time and resources towards testing, you know, where you want to put time towards or which types of different channels you want to focus on. I think we can get some data that's maybe surprising. So I think with Marketo, there's already a lot of tools already at your fingertips, a lot that you can unlock. But very exciting to start use multi-touch attribution and give you some quick wins here. So I appreciate your time today. I hope this was helpful in helping you get started in thinking about what's currently available to you and what you can start working with. Feel free to send me any questions, and we will make this recording and materials available for you after the call. Have a wonderful day.